Okay, y'all. I've had a question for almost a year and couldn't find an answer anywhere online or even with the dealers or with Polaris. So I went ahead and answered the question for myself. So my question was, can you two up a Polaris Axys chassis with the supplied Polaris seats that are available, the M2 and the FT2 seats? According to Polaris website, you cannot. But as I looked over the specs more and over my machines, it really didn't make sense to me that you couldn't make it happen. So I went and bought the FT2 and the base and the M2 seat, and I'll describe to you how it went. Now granted, before I get started, I know these aren't the XC style or INDY style sleds. They're not necessarily made, or they're not made to necessarily be two-up sleds. But I have a number of young kids and they like to go out with me and my wife when we're sledding, but they don't like to go out for hours and hours at a time. And I didn't want to have to get a cross-country or Indy type sled when I like to do a lot of side hilling and powder trips. So I wanted to find a good solution to make this work. So Polaris has two-seat options made for, obviously, the Indy style sleds. One of them is the M2 seat, both a heated seat and a non-heated seat option, and an FT2 seat with a separate base. You have to buy also a heated, non-heated option. And my two sleds, I have a 2019 Polaris Pro RMK 800 Axys chassis and a 2016 Polaris Pro RMK 800 Axys chassis. And it just there wasn't any information out there to verify for me that you could two up these seats. I could take my kids for an hour or so and then come drop them back off at the cabin and then pop the seats off and then go side hilling with friends and family. So after looking at the specs of my sleds and going into the various dealerships and stores, it didn't make sense to me why I couldn't make it happen. So on this first sled here, I have my 2019 Axys chassis. This is the M2 seat, and I'll throw part numbers up here in a minute. But as you can see, and here later in the video, I'll actually have these off and show you how I installed them and little tips and tricks, but show you how this works. But there's the M2. And over here on my wife's 2016 is the FT2 seat and the base that you have to buy separately to go with it. But as you can see right away, spoiler alert, they both work. Now, do they fit perfectly? I would dare say one of them no, and one of them yes. All right, so here later in the video, I'll have these off and I'll give you my opinions on which one I like better than the other and why. All right, so starting first with the M2 on my 2019 Polaris Axys sled. So just to show you how we take it off real quick, and then I'll show you what you need to put it back on. I mean, that's pretty simple. The seat itself, again, I'll put part numbers up. The seat comes as an entire unit. You do need to put it together. Little tip, when you slide the arm bars in, there's a sleeve that they need to go through, and then that sleeve and the arm bars go in the tunnel. Use a little bit of lubricant, little grease, something to help you get it on all the way, because it is important they go on all the way in order for these arms to seat the way that they need to seat. But in a nutshell, you already saw how easily the seat comes off, and all I needed to do because these seats technically, like I said, are made for the Indy cross-country style sleds. And those types of sleds come with this Lock and Ride Flex adapter kit, actually already pre-mounted to the seat itself. It's a part of the seat. And so you can order this via Polaris, your dealers, anybody. It's about 40 bucks, I think, $39.99. This Lock and Ride Flex kit. And just take in a 10mm socket with the 2 bolts, and then the hardware that comes with the seat, the anchor attachments. You can put this seat on, and let me show you up close what I mean. So here you can see with your Flex Lock and Ride and the 10mm, you go ahead and slide these pieces through the hole here that comes on all your sleds of these year, make, and models. Slide those down in first. I'm gonna take it off for you. So there you go. So there's the Lock and Ride Flex adapter kit. And then you have your bolts here that, again, on all these tails of the sleds, you've got your slide in spots here that this is technically sitting on now with the same kind of attachment points here. Go ahead and slide that in, slide it down your rail, slide down your tail here. Same on this side. And then go ahead and put that on. Now a tip, obviously just so you know correct positioning, and this is correct, you want to be able to read the words as you look at the back of your sled. And it comes with an install manual anyways, let's just follow that. But I wouldn't necessarily commit these to any spot just yet. I would slide, when you put these on, slide the front tabs in on the seat, snap the seat down, and then you can secure this. And that's what I did. Now just a hint here, a little tip. If you put this all the way tight up against the tabs on the bottom of the seat, it definitely is a lot harder to take the seat out just by sheer physics here of having to slide the seat tabs in, the seat's putting pressure on the back of your actual sled seat, and then you lock into your tabs here. So if you just scoot this forward just barely to it's still a good fit, it will allow you a little bit extra room to get that seat on and off. But I'll show you here, set this back up. So with it loose, and not losing the nuts here, take the whole seat, and these are the Flex Lock and Ride tabs that come with a lot of the accessories that go on the tail of the sled. So you see here, you're just going to slide that in, kind of give it a little push, find your tabs for the first time, pull up on them, push down, and the seat's in. Obviously that last time was a little bit awkward, but once you get this adapter kit set where you want it, like I said, push it all the way back so it contacts the tabs of the seat. Then I would pull it forward just a little bit. Like we're talking maybe 1/8 of an inch, if that. You don't need much because you can still get it on with it all the way tight. It's just easier if you have a little bit of wiggle room. And there you go. So now your seat's on. I love the contouring. I think it fits really well. From a child or even an adult, I guess, seating perspective. So I'm 6'2". So as the main rider, see, I still have plenty of room. Hop up as I need to. Get my foot over the seat. But your passenger here has plenty of room. So as an adult, you're still sitting in a nice, comfortable, reclined seat or position. Kids or whomever can still hold their grips. You can get your feet, the foot plates for your rails. but just put you in that comfortable position. Your kids can go riding, or whoever can go riding for you, with you for a couple hours, and then you can take it back off. So once again, with it all the way on, tabs on each side, flex tabs, just lift and pull. That's it. And then to put it back on, make sure the feet tabs go in first, the front tabs. Then now that it's already set, you know where you like it, pull up on the tabs, and that's in. Again, I think the contouring is appropriate. It still has a nice rise in front, so your kids or your passenger aren't going to come flying forward too often, as long as they're holding on, and it keeps them reclined back enough. And one last benefit I would say about this particular seat, and then I'll get to the FT2 seat, is when you're not having the seat in use and you do go and take it off, so what I like now is you can take your tunnel bag. So I have the large Brandt tunnel bag with the flex lock and ride tabs, and with this bag it comes with your anchor points back here. So same kind of concept, slide your tabs in, slide that on. Tabs fine, there's space. You get it where you want to, carefully take it off, tighten it in position, and now you can really quickly switch between your tunnel bag, get your gear in there, your shovel, all your supplies you need, all the recommendations people have. You can pop back and forth real quick between that 2-up seat and then back to your side hilling bag, your preparedness bag. You're ready to go in a matter of just a minute. All right, now on to the FT2 2-up seat made by Polaris. Now on this seat, a couple things just in comparison real quick between this and the M2. As you can see, it's, as far as just overall profile and height, this one sits up, I feel, a little bit higher. You can definitely tell the front of it sits up higher than the front of the M2. And the back obviously is a different contouring and profile. But just sitting on it, the positive about this one is if you're sitting on your sled, and again, I know most of us like to be standing the whole time, but if you're really doing true just trail riding with your family, friends, or kids or whatever, you'll be sitting. So as you're sitting on your sled, this almost gives you a nice little back support, lower back support, where you actually got something to kind of lean against. Necessary? No, but a nice little add-on, just because. So, and then sitting back as the passenger, I can tell you, I feel like versus in the M2, I do feel like I'm sitting up a little bit higher. And whether that be a pro or a con, maybe like me, if you're a 200-pound passenger, that makes it a little bit more top heavy, of course. But little kids like mine, I've got plenty under 100 pounds still, and that's not really going to be an issue for me, and maybe actually allows them to see over me as I'm driving over my shoulders. But still have the same concept, the same ergonomic style of your hand grips. You can, like I said, on my other sled, you can still get footrests that you can add for this. They have a place to store their feet or keep their feet. But overall, feels pretty similar to the M2. Little slight differences. Huge differences? No. But getting off the sled, it doesn't necessarily sit and contour as well to the seat of my sled as the M2 does, but it still has its benefits. Like I said, you got kind of a built-in backrest. It does sit them up or back a little bit more, so maybe it'll keep my kids a little bit more in their seat, especially if we're doing any abrupt stopping or whatever. But as far as putting this on, and this is where clearly the huge differences are between this, the FT2 and the M2, is how this connects to the sled, to the tail of the sled. So still has the flex style tabs. So just like on the M2, one on each side of the seat, pull up and pull this off. So the seat base and the seat itself are two different things. There's a tab in the back here that allows you to lock or unlock just the seat itself from the base. So you could leave the base on your sled, and yes, there is actually a under seat bag specifically made for the FT2 base, but there's where I'll tell you there's kind of the big difference for me, and a little hint at which one you might think I prefer better, the M2 or the FT2, is something I'm going to show you right now. So when you install the base of your FT2, it comes with these slider base, this slider base here, that is a permanent fixture on the sled. So there's obviously your main anchor point tab. It does come with these nice rubber covers for both sides, that if you're not having the seat or the base on the tail of your sled, it just covers and protects the points, obviously important. But you do have, and I put 3 of the 10mm bolts and nuts here on each side. And what I did, same as on the other seat, is I kept these somewhat loose. This underneath does sit in the hole, the sliding hole of the grooves here. So you really don't have much variability on where this can sit when you're done and tightened. But I still had it a little bit loose just to see, I make sure I could get it on. And then you saw me take the seat off. Same concept. You kind of slide the hooks of your base into these tabs here, and then slap it down, pull the tabs up, and reduce the seat. The one part about it that kind of set me off a little bit is if I don't want the seat on, and like my sled over there, my tunnel bag, I've got the large tunnel bag, small, any kind of the tunnel bags that you have, there's no way to really attach them now with this on here. You can't really put that flex lock and ride adapter on here. I guess maybe you could try and sneak it here in the back and get the real shortest bag. But if you're gonna do that, you might as well just get the bag that goes under this base, which still works really well. Just for me, for the Axys and what I like, and for my accessories, I'm just used to, and I have the flex lock and ride technology equipment. So that makes this one a little bit harder for me to rationalize using, just because it's not really useful for anything else that I have. But overall, still a phenomenal seat. I'll show you when I put it back on here. Goes on and off just fine. So again, word to Polaris as I kind of end this video. M2 fits. 2019 or 2016 Axys chassis on a Polaris Pro RMK 800. FT2 seat fits on a Polaris Pro RMK 800 with an Axys chassis. It does say online they don't. Is it an absolute perfect fit? No, and I get with Polaris they have to, it's not necessarily made for this. And you do, like I said, have to add like the flex lock and ride adapter, which I have an extra one here. See, there's the part number there. There's your retrofit lock and ride adapter kit that you can put on. But as I look at both of these, and let me put the FT2 back on real fast so you can see how it goes on. The seats are nice and sturdy. Again, they're made for the Polaris sleds, just for the Indy sleds. So kind of give yourself, see the seat there kind of sits, and you got plenty of give in that seat. So kind of give yourself a little line up here. Make sure both of those engage that bar on the front of these slides. Pull up on the tabs. Just make sure it's seated, which it is. Rock solid. So, word to Polaris, if anybody knows anybody at Polaris, I'm going to give this to my local guys at the dealership. They were extremely helpful and good about getting me these. I did pay for them, but they were good about getting them in for me in a timely fashion. Action Motorsports here in Idaho Falls. But the seats are great. They both work. They both fit. Kind of pros to both. Maybe a con for this one for me, and that's really it, is I like the interchangeability, and the whole purpose of the flex lock and ride technology is to switch things quickly. But for me, taking out my side hill machines, but having the option to take my children, who really only last about an hour anyway, if that, when we're riding up here in the cold of Idaho, we can bring them back to the cabin, hang out with Grandma and Grandpa, pop these seats off, my wife and I, or my friends, or my wife and her friends, whoever, can go and take the sleds and have some fun. So I'll throw the part numbers up here, or I can just tell you and then I'll throw them up on the screen at the end here. I'll leave links in the description about where you can get them, prices, and which parts you really are going to need to have a 2-up seat on a Polaris Axys chassis. So thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Leave a like if you can, and enjoy sledding. Go get the powder. So you can see here, instruction manuals. Here's your M2 seat, part number, and just all the instructions, the pieces you need to know. M2 seat part number I used, 2884725, and I believe the 4957, I believe, is the heated seat. But so there's your M2. And then here's your FT2 passenger seat support. So that's that support base that I was talking about, part number 2883646. The FT2 seat itself, again, non-heated version, part number 2883637. And you can get that under rack I was talking about for the FT2, part number 2883714, for about $170. So the FT2 seat, at least through Polaris currently, is about $715, and the rack itself is just over $300. So you're looking about just over $1,000 for the FT2 setup. And then for the M2 seat, non-heated version, that runs you just under $900. So really within $100 of each other, you get quite a bit of functionality. Take or leave the pros and cons of what you like about each of the seats. The heated version of the M2 is right actually about $1,000, but just over $1,000. And then that flex and lock and ride flex adapter kit that I showed you a little bit earlier, part number 2884939, you get for $39.99. But again, thank you for paying attention. I hope for all you out there that have had the same question as myself, now you know it's not just even a forum discussion. You know they work, and they're secured tightly. We've taken them out. They don't fall off. They're locked on like they're supposed to be. They work. So 2-up possibility on an Axys chassis. Like I said, 2016 sled, 2019 sled, both RMK Pros, and we're excited to have some fun with our family this season. So thanks. Have a good day.